Hello and welcome to this Engerati interview. I'm here with Miguel, who's the head of utilities for the EMEA region for SAP. Um, a well-known company and one that's deeply embedded within the utility sector. And Miguel, I just, yeah, I've kind of hijacked Miguel, so let's put this into context. And one of the things we're talking off air about is wanting to have a conversation about what's happening within the distribution network. And let's put that into context. So the distribution network is now being asked to do a number of things it wasn't asked to do before. There are two-way flows. For those of us who can afford PVs, we're generating. For those of us who can afford things like the Tesla Powerwall, we're going to have batteries behind the meter. Smart meters are there or thereabouts in the rollout strategy. The use cases for smart meters are, in the beginning, started with a billing use case, are now becoming edge intelligence, grid intelligence use cases. There's a lot going on in that network. So, how are we going to go about managing all of this? And I accept it's a big question. So, Miguel, can you just start us off from the sort of data management maybe challenges on that side of things?
Really multiple things to that and multiple perspectives. Now, we have a concept, right, that we are talking now about more and more. It's the digital utility network, right? So all these elements are becoming connected. Now, more and more, as important as the amount of energy that is flowing in the grids is really the proper coordination of information, of elements in that grid. And of course, you can only coordinate things that you are receiving, right, as input. So, for sure, there is a big trend about sensoring the network, putting more and more sensors, smart meters all over the network, not only in final customers, but also in the substations, in the transformers, so that now you start to know exactly what's going on in terms of the energy flow. And the energy flow, as you have also said, it's now two ways, really, right? It's about from the central power generation plants to the final consumers, but also now from the final consumers to the grid. And this is now creating many challenges to the grid owners, right? So we have heard recently, several statistics and utilities claiming that now they have 10 times more interventions into their grid assets than what they had before, simply because they cannot cope in an easy way with the amount of energy that is being generated for so many distributed sources. So a key aspect to that, right, and something where utilities are now investing, and something that we are also doing with several of those utilities, is to gather data so that they can have a different insight about their distribution assets, right? This insight has not been there in the past, either because they would not have the data, or sometimes they would have the data but they would miss to have the tools to analyze it. And analyzing it means doing real-time analytics, knowing exactly what is going on, and somehow, I guess, they would have it covered. Somehow, with simple thresholds, they would know more or less what's going on. But then they would many times be missing to do the retrospective analysis of data and correlating factors and events in the grid. And this would be a cause for missing many recurring events because they could not look at it.
And that retrospective analysis wasn't done because literally, in terms of capacity, they are full maxed out, just running the operation and don't have the time? Or is it because we never had the tools? I mean, there's a lot of big data wash going on out there, but what you're really talking about is the ability to analyze in a meaningful way structured and unstructured data with high volumes and high velocity. That's what it is. So is it that technical ability that's now allowing that, or was it just simply a time issue?
It's both, I guess, right? Obviously, this focus has not been there, and when people would try to have that focus doing some retrospective analysis, they would find at least serious limitations in the tool, sometimes even not possible. If possible, they would not be able to put the data into the right context, for example, and this would probably ask people to have a quite big effort versus the results that they would get. Now it's a completely different thing, right? Now we are having business process platforms that are able to get all this data and now putting that data into a particular semantic context, right? And the semantic context is very important, right? I mean, many times I say, right, you go to the big lake, right? You get a fish. I mean, but in fact, if you miss the semantic context, I mean, sometimes it might look like a fish, but it's not a fish. You need to know the other elements there, right, that would allow you to understand how much of that is a fish, what exactly is the context, how it was created, raised, right? So, and this is very important, this business context. Now this is possible to be done, right? Now you can do it this.
And surely it must be one of those things, it's one of the things that I find very unique about this industry, you know, unlike the applications of this sort of predictive modeling in other industries where the end outcome is just a business model, like, you know, I'm selling iPhones, or I want to sell more tablets, or I want to be disruptive. You can mold everything. With the utility sector, the end output you cannot mold because you start dealing with the laws of physics. So there must be some huge commonality. I mean, you know, the challenges of a distribution network. I mean, the electron is the same in Madrid, in London, in Tokyo, in Paris, but there must be some huge ability to correlate all this learning and kind of learn on a global scale, because you solve it there, that'll be applicable there. And it's not like there's competition. It's not like the people who solved it there can suddenly pitch up in London and say, I'll do it better.
Yeah, absolutely. The collaboration opportunity is there. And also these companies, they tend not to be competitors, which also facilitates things. And I mean, also we, as much as we can, we try to facilitate these forums, right? So myself, I lead an Executive Valley network with focus on smart grids, where we bring together the major European players to discuss exactly about these topics, right? How they can take advantage of the smart grids as a concept, and how they can collaborate, right, to start addressing concrete use cases that will change the way they operate. Now, a funny thing, Adam, just to sometimes people don't always know, it's not only about getting the data, right? We have concrete use cases, or concrete examples of customers where we got that data, and by correlating that data, we could see that sometimes the utilities was reacting to wrong data that was being provided by the sensors. Sometimes we forget, but the sensors are not always working perfectly. Sometimes they do not work well at a certain temperature level, and they start giving you signals that are absolutely not relevant for your business operations.
And that's where putting that data into context, you can kind of go, hang on a minute, we're getting this data, but the temperature is 50 degrees, therefore chances are it might be wrong. And you've kind of led me quite nicely into, and we were talking about this off air, you know, again, I'm not going to spend too much time on the whole IoT thing. People watching this will know what that's all about. But, you know, what are those concrete use cases? Because it is about that sensor data, and then showing concrete use data, because, I mean, you can censor everything, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And then you end up with this tsunami of data and you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
can you just bring, in the short time we've got, a couple of those use cases to life so that people can understand, like, this is what you're able to find?
Yeah. So I will give you 3 examples, okay? One that we have done already a couple of years ago is peak load forecasting. So this is something we have done with Aliander. And with Aliander, we have developed a solution that allows Aliander to put together, in a very limited time frame, the business case for the regulator to approve the investments based on the peak load forecasting for the next 5 years.
Limited time frame, month, days?
So it went down from 3 months to 1 week. So this is what was possible to do with a complete different framework for integrating the SCADA data with the analytical solution based on SAP HANA. Another one with PSE&G in the US is one solution focused on transform analytics. So there we could collect all the 10 minutes interval data from all the transformers they have in the field, and being able to predict their lifetime loss, doing real-time monitoring of their condition, and then correlating this again with the asset maintenance operations that were done in that set of transformers, giving the real context to those signals and data that you are collecting.
And that allows them to optimize their maintenance plans, optimize or de-risk, you know, you can predict when a transformer is going to blow up or
Yes.
get closer to it. Blow up is maybe a strong word, but
Yeah.
fail, right? These things don't usually explode. But and what's the third use case that you were going to bring to us?
So the one is on predictive maintenance, right?
Right.
This was done with Centerpoint.
Right.
They had the need to start understanding in a much better way what was the actual condition of their underground lines.
Right.
And by being able to get different sensor data from on-site inspections and others, then there was a solution that we have developed with them that allowed them to predict what exactly would be the needs of maintenance of certain sections of underground lines that they would have in their territory that is served. Centerpoint is operating in Texas.
Yeah.
So these are three recent cases where we have exactly addressed what we would call IT/OT use cases for the concrete context of utility distributor.
And those three use cases are we are only able to execute them with the tech we have now. Those are not use cases that could have been done before. So we've clearly gone over a line, so to speak, with technology. Would you agree with that? That's where we are?
Yes. So we would be. I mean, there are one thing that is fundamental, right? We are now being able to bring these two worlds together, the OT world and the IT world. So they have been and they are still in several utilities very much put apart for different reasons. But now more and more utilities see that there is a possibility to integrate. There are the tools, there are the solutions, and there are the advantages to do so. So this is, a kind of a disruption that we have, right? And that now allows us to address these particular use cases. And now, of course, then, having these type of solutions completely on top of an in-memory platform that brings together the semantic context, the business operations context, everything into one single platform, then, of course, this facilitates these use cases like never before.
And is this IT/OT integration, just as we're sort of coming to the end of our time, is this IT/OT integration getting easier? And because my view is this, so the old way of doing integration is you had a system here, you had a system there, and then you tried to get them to talk to each other, whereas I think the new way is you've got a system here, you've got a system there, you shove the outputs into the cloud, and you get the cloud there where all the smarts are to do the integration piece. And these two things, you're actually creating an abstraction. So there's a safety net in being able to do that. So is that ability, having the maturity of the cloud where it is now, actually making it faster to integrate systems like that?
I'm not sure. I mean, the cloud by itself does not deliver the contents, right? And the integration pieces that you need to put together. For sure, there are now easily available tools, something that you can easier consume than before, but you still need the tools. Now, what you see more and more is that these tools are coming together in an easy way indeed, because some of the vendors, for example, the OT world, like OSIsoft has developed an adapter that allows us to bring directly information from their OSIsoft Pi solution into ANA, and then writing back the results of this back to OSIsoft. So this is one concrete example where a pure OT player has now invested in integrating this to the IT player that is SAP, because they saw the advantage and the value that it can bring to the OSIsoft customers, further exploring that data, right? Putting this into the right context, and by the way, even receiving the results of those detailed analyses back to the OT world, right? So this is one example that makes things simpler and easier. And then also, of course, on the IT world, now, of course, there is this capability of handling real-time data, and it's somehow missing so far, right?
Yes.
So we, in SAP, we have done quite a development there. Now we have a quite mature platform that handles this, based on ANA, as said. And now with these different partnerships, in particular, for example, with this one, with OSIsoft, we make everything much easier for our customers.
And that's interesting that, and we're going to wrap it up, that it seems to me that what is happening there is analogous to what happened in the IT world, where software systems used to be very close proprietary things, and then suddenly you wouldn't buy, if you're going to buy a software system now, the first question you would ask, which is one that you didn't used to ask, do you have an open API?
Absolutely.
Do you have a documented API? Is that exactly what's happening here as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's even a combination of things, right? It's being open, that you can easily consume. Is then you have you are also now looking for hybrid deployments, on-premise, on the cloud, out-of-the-box integration. Some functions you completely accept them to be on the cloud and you take them forward. Some others you say absolutely not. I need this absolutely into the borders of my company, on-premise, completely managed by ourselves as a company because there is lots of sensible data. The regulations does not allow whatsoever. So they look at all kinds of things, right? In terms of the finding the right combination for their right requirements and context, which is of course now much more complex than it was before.
Must be an interesting time to work in this field now, right?
Yes, very interesting indeed.
Brilliant. On that note, Miguel, thank you very much. And on that note, we'll leave it. And thank you as well for watching. Thanks again.